tardes, gracias por estar aquí. Esta es la rueda de prensa que incluye algunos de los invitados que vienen a estar con nosotros para GAMACON 2014. Para platicarles un poco de lo que es GAMACON, ya tuvimos una rueda de prensa la semana pasada, pero eso fue desde el punto de vista de lo que es la iniciativa GAMACON. Es una iniciativa para impulsar el desarrollo, la industria del desarrollo de videojuegos de animación aquí en Baja California. Esta rueda de prensa va más enfocada a la parte de la convención, la parte divertida, la que no es negocios, la que no es estudiar, la que no es una universidad. Esa es la parte divertida que es para todo el público. Entonces, ¿qué es GAMACON? GAMACON es una convención de videojuegos, anime, cómics. ¿Y qué tenemos en la convención? ¿Qué es lo que pueden encontrar? Vamos a tener torneos de videojuegos, concursos de cosplay o disfraces, música, arte, diferentes expositores que van a estar presentando cómics, monitos, juguetes, cosas que pueden ir a comprar ahí. También van a encontrar áreas de computadoras, van a encontrar varias áreas de un pabellón de universidades, donde varias universidades van a estar presentando los programas académicos que ya tienen enfocados a esta industria. Tenemos un pabellón de desarrolladores en donde vienen varios estudios de Estados Unidos, del interior de la República o locales, que también van a estar mostrando qué es lo que están haciendo en esta industria. ¿Qué más vamos a tener? La parte que más llama la atención son todos los invitados que traemos, y son los invitados que ahorita les vamos a presentar para que les puedan hacer preguntas. ¿Qué invitados traemos? Ahorita aquí con nosotros van a estar Nolan Bushnell, que es el creador y fundador de Atari, para todos los que somos gamers de la vieja escuela de 1978. Pero viene la persona que inventó el Atari, que es considerado el padre de los videojuegos, y creo que dentro de la industria de los videojuegos, yo creo que no hay persona más importante que él. Ya activamente no participa en la industria de los videojuegos, pero gracias a él millones de hogares a nivel mundial pudieron disfrutar de lo que es este medio de entretenimiento. Entonces, él nada más ha venido una vez a México y lo trajo una compañía bastante grande. La segunda vez que viene a México en cuestión de una convención, de una conferencia, es aquí a Mexicali. Entonces, para la iniciativa GAMACON, para el estado de Baja California, es un gran logro poder tener a este señor. Es un señor con una agenda muy complicada, siempre ocupado, pero está aquí con nosotros. Entonces, él es nuestro invitado principal, que ahorita lo van a conocer. También traemos a Gerard Marino, que es el compositor musical de la serie del Dios de la Guerra, God of War, una de las franquicias más importantes de Sony. Traemos aquí con nosotros a Britanni Johnson, que ella es la actriz que hace a Angel de la serie de Borderlands, que es también una franquicia bastante interesante. Tenemos con nosotros también a Robert Clotworthy. Él es el actor que hace el personaje Jim Raynor en la serie de StarCraft, que es muy específico para computadores de videojuego y es para una compañía que se llama Blizzard, que es de las más importantes a nivel mundial. Por último, aquí con nosotros también va a estar Meghan Ashley. Ella es la modelo oficial de Marvel que hace el personaje de Mystique. Cuando Marvel necesita a Mystique en carne y hueso, que no es la de las películas, la contratan a ella como modelo. Entonces, son los 5 invitados que tenemos aquí. Quienes no van a estar por cuestiones que vienen de más lejos o sus aviones se retrasaron. Viene Steve Downs, que es la voz que hace Master Chief de la serie Halo, que es una de las más importantes de Microsoft Xbox. También tenemos a Tony Todd, que es un actor de Hollywood que hizo la trilogía de las películas de Candyman, de terror de los 90s, muy conocido. También hizo hace poco la de Destino Final y ha hecho varias interpretaciones en videojuegos también. Y muchas películas. Él ha salido al lado de Nicolas Cage, de Sean Connery, Ed Harris, en una película muy conocida que se llama The Rock, que es unos soldados que toman por rehenes a la cárcel de Alcatraz de San Francisco. Y también hace falta que llegue una compositora musical que en la industria de los videojuegos como compositora es muy importante, que es Rika Muranaka. Ella es japonesa y ella fue la que compuso toda la música de Metal Gear Solid, de Castlevania Symphony of the Night y Silent Hill. Pues esa fue una de las invitadas que no viene ahí en el póster, pero la acabamos de confirmar hace 2 días y va a estar con nosotros. Entonces, ¿quieres decir unas palabras? ¿No? Bueno, GAMACON es mañana, sábado y domingo la convención, 1 y 2 de noviembre, de 11 de la mañana a 8 de la tarde. Es para toda la familia, es un evento donde van a hacer actividades todo el día. Tenemos un área de comida para los que crean que tienen que llegar ya comidos, no, pueden llegar desde las 11, hay lugar para comer diferentes platillos, no nada más pizza, pero y pueden estar bueno, para jóvenes también, niños, va a haber una actividad para todos. Entonces, sin más rollo de parte mía, les presento a una parte de los invitados de GAMACON 2014. Por favor, un fuerte aplauso para recibirlos. ¿Alguien habla español ustedes? ¿No español?
Un poquito.
¿Un poquito? Bueno, la idea es que les puedan hacer todas las preguntas si quieren. Pueden atacar, no hay problema. Para eso están aquí y preguntar por qué es Mexicali, ¿no? Pero si alguien tiene preguntas para los invitados, adelante, por favor.
Well, I would like to ask Mr. Bushnell. I've been a gamer since, well, I know, I'm even the Jaguar, you know. Okay, I know. Sensible, it's sensible. I want to know if you ever considered the way the evolution of video games as a possibility, the way that it has evolved at this point from when you started with the 8-bit, 4-bit systems and the evolution of the Atari system in particular to the point we are now. Did you think it was possible?
In a way, yes, I did. I always knew that as the technology got better, resolution would increase, our ability to, approach photorealism was a possibility. I'd say the biggest thing that surprised me, that I didn't anticipate, is the ubiquity of mobile and portable game process. That somehow, remember the Atari, during the days of Atari, the cell phone hadn't been invented yet. So, to say that we were going to be able to have games as a platform on your cell phone, that was very surprising.
Why Atari? How did that idea arise for you? Why Atari? How?
Well, I'm going to tell you that in slides in great gory color detail for me, but it was really, I was lucky. I always loved games, but I also became manager of an amusement park game unit. I had 100 kids working for me on the midway, throwing balls, knocking down the bottles, what have you. But I did that summers while I was pursuing an engineering degree. And the University of Utah had probably the first computer graphics department in the world. And so there was, Ed Catmull, Alan Kay, John Warnick, all the guys who were sort of the pivotal movers and shakers in the early days of computer graphics all came out of the University of Utah. Now that's really a weird place. You'd think MIT, you'd think Stanford, but you wouldn't think the University of Utah. But it so happened. And so I saw video graphics and knew that if I could create a game that was cheap enough to go into my arcades, that they'd make money. But you divide 25 cents a play into $1 million computer, and the math doesn't. But it planted the seeds, and as costs came down, one day I just thought, maybe now the time is right, and it turned out it was.
I have another question. It's not a problem. It's about how gaming has evolved from just the entertainment perspective to a true art form, because it is an art form. It includes music, design, acting, voice acting. In fact, it evolves, it unifies so many art forms that it should be considered an art form by itself?
It is considered, but then Gerard should talk a little bit about that. He does some of the great art that, you know. Gerard?
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a multimedia experience. It's got different kinds of art involved, of the visual kind, of the acting kind, of the musical kind. And some of these things, in particular the art and the music, can stand on its own as its own art form. So, I mean, I don't know what the exact question was, but it's...
The exact question was, is it considered right now an art form? Because gamers do, but some artists don't think of it. It's like, because it's collaborative, that's the word I was looking for. And some people think it doesn't stand on its own as an art product.
And some big game developers feel that way. But, you know, movies are indeed a collaborative art form using the same things minus game design. You know, I think the big key, the big clincher about games is that they're the thing that actually involves you. You're not a passive, a passive observer of art. You're actually part of the art. You know, so it's that's what makes it really unique. That's what sets up most of the challenges. And actually, I don't think that, at least on the high-level console games, that they've really addressed that issue. That they try to make it seem like you're living a movie or in a movie, and they're really very focused on being movie-esque. Definitely on the movie side, on the music side. But the very fact that you're involved in it, all those movie-making things, you know, even having music at all, it's, you know, like the music comes on. Well, if you're part of a movie, music doesn't come on unless you get nervous about walking in that door. So that's like one of those issues, that the fact that you're in there, you're not in a movie. And I think, as a whole, that's one thing that as creators of games we need to think about.
I could actually put it succinctly: the people who don't think it's art are wrong.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's a good answer. Aside from composing for video games, have you worked in movies? Any movies or voiceovers or?
Yeah.
I mean, because I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, I put myself through college as a strip club DJ, so that's the biggest part of my voiceover work. I've done a little bit of voice work on some of the games I've been on. I've sung on all the God of War games. Sometimes we don't even have, some of those cues where it's a full choir is actually me multi-tracks. Because I would do the demos, because I worked with a librettist and had Greek lyrics written, and in order to get them to sign off on the music, I didn't think it would, I didn't want to take the chance that they wouldn't sign off on it, so I would just sing over the parts just to make them get the idea and give them the lyrics, because we wrote the lyrics exactly about what was going on in there. So there's some of that. And yes, I've scored movies. Actually, I came out to Hollywood to be a film TV composer. But while I was in college is when the technology, the CD-ROM technology, basically started to make it possible to not be a programmer just to get music into games. So, you know, you didn't have to program 8-bit chips with ones and zeros and whatever language they were using. Because I had tried that and I hated it. Absolutely hate computer programming. It's just not me. You know, that's a very specific part of the brain that some guys, girls just freaking love it. And I hate it. So, but anyway, you know, that's when I was in college. Quake 1 came out. I had music by Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails, and it was amazing. But yeah, I just kind of accidentally got into games because it became a thing where they're trying to get the movie sound, which I had been training for all that time.
¿Preguntas?
¿Alguien más?
Son tímidos. No hablan inglés.
Sí, me he podido traducir. Una pregunta para el señor Bushnell. ¿No le sorprende que ya después de 30 o 30 y tantos años la gente sigue jugando juegos de Atari de esos tiempos?
Are you surprised that after 30-something years people are still playing Atari?
You know, it puzzled me for a long time that people still loved it. Then I realized that just like a really well-crafted old movie, the games still have relevance, and sometimes, since we had so little graphics capability and sound capability. The only tools that we had was timing and response and gameplay. And so in some ways, I think that we were more careful about the actual gameplay than a lot of the people now, because they can focus on so many other things, so they don't have, the patience to really get that nuanced stuff down that we spent a lot of time on.
Thanks.
Just maybe one last question. Why come here to make a cut?
Well,
It's October 31st. It's Dia del Muerto? Muerto? Muerte.
No, Muerte?
Muertes? Muertos. Well, that's why I'm here.
I think it's important, whenever you have a collection of gamers, to celebrate the art and the capability of games, to support that. Today, video games are not just a passion, but it's a major industry. We're bigger than the movie industry, and I feel like we have an affirmative responsibility to pass on our passion and our love to the next generation and the generation after that. There are a lot of people who are just starting out their careers, and they need to know what a great life it can create. It's been really good for me.
I can step in on that one too. Basically, most of the work when you're working on games, especially the music, you do in a dark little room by yourself, and and you email it to people in other dark rooms, and you put it all together, and it goes out there. And even if the game's a big raging success, those people are enjoying it in their dark little rooms. So you can come to a convention like this, and then we can all get together and talk about how awesome we are and how awesome everything is. Because we get out of our dark little rooms, and we're all just regular geeky folks too. So we've got all of that in common. So it's always a blast when I come to one.
So before today, have any of you guys been together before? In other conventions or are from
Wait, what was it?
Before today, have you ever been together in any other conventions, or did you just get together today?
Well, Nolan and I had a nice adventure in Dubai with Tommy Tallarico on Video Games Live a couple years ago.
How about you, ladies? I want to hear you talk.
Ask him a
We've
question.
talked already.
Hey, y'all ask them the questions, so.
Okay, how does it feel to be in Mystique?
Awesome.
Do you get to flip and fight and stuff like that, or?
I do now.
Okay.
When this all started out, it was just a lot of posing in the positions and holding, and a lot of, if you can get me into the position, I can hold it. But like they were saying, I come to these conventions a lot just to share the love of the geekdom. That's kind of my main reason for, being here. But and to share the love with Mystique, because come on, seriously, Miss Blue is the best and she is awesome. And if people don't understand that, they're missing out. This is my Raven Darkholme look.
Yeah, blue rules.
So yes, blue rules. And I love that people are expressing more blue characters nowadays.
Mine's blue. Mine's blue. Well, I don't know. I love coming to these events and I love traveling conventions because I'm not always in a dark room, but you don't always get interaction with the fans and with the community. And so to come to these things and to celebrate the games that we've made and love. So, of course, I jumped on the opportunity as soon as I heard about it.
How does it feel? I mean, when actual fans get to see you and talk to you, and they don't recognize you just because you're in the game, but when they see you personally, how do they react? How do you feel when you see them react when they see you? Like, oh, you're the lady from the machine.
Usually it's awkward silence. For the most part, usually they're like, but I found, like, here's the jaw. Okay. And so what I've experienced lately is when people start to cosplay the characters that I've been, especially my character that's inside of me, I'm like, it's usually me in awe of them. And so it's just like this awkward transition of, wait, you're a better me than me. Like, so I don't know, it's been an amazing experience.
It's so true. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, so the Mystique that I do, there's so, when people cosplay Mystique, there's more actually this year of the Mystique in the black. And it's weird because they do such a good job of it now. and I'm like, oh, I go up to them and I'm like, oh, what body paint did you use? How hard is it? Why isn't it rubbing off? Oh, tell me more. And I'm like, yeah.
And for me, there's usually a cognitive disconnect because, as you can see, I'm in much better shape.
There's some similarity right there.
Pardon me?
There's some similarity right there.
Yeah, very close. Very close. Yeah, the glasses exactly. No, it's actually, I've been doing that role since 1999, and I'm like the original. I'm one of the two that has gone through all the games, and it's fascinating to meet the people because everybody that is involved with that game that plays it. As I like to say, you can't be an idiot and play the game. It takes a certain amount of intelligence to play this game. It's complicated. It's difficult, and there's a great moral message that is part of the game. And so it's a pleasure to meet people and to communicate that with them. And I'm a big fan of the game. If I wasn't in it, I would be playing it. That's what I tell people.
So because you're in, you don't play it?
You know what I do? You know what I could say? People ask me all the time if I play it online, and I say, if I did, I wouldn't tell you because imagine the cred you would have if you were online and saying you kicked Jim Raynor's
True.
True that.
Well, we'll have a Pong at GAMACON, so.
Oh, no,
on out.
see,
A couple of people would like to challenge you there.
Like a dunking booth.
the problem is you lose about 50 milliseconds of reaction time for every year you get older. And so,
Like about 20 minutes.
yeah, I mean, my kids have beaten me and gone out to breakfast. But at the time, I know that I have to have a challenge. No, but it's, but as you get older, if it requires stealth and guile, I'm still in the game.
I have a question. Nolan, you mentioned on the way here that people buy the software, not more the hardware. They buy the experience in the game and the actual engagement with the software. What message would you give to, there's a growing software community here in Mexicali and in Baja of developers. Where do you see that these people can focus more to create better games?
Well, I think that it's always important to build games that you personally love. But more than that, games that represent a unique culture. Like I believe that there is something that is unique in the Mexicali mind that should be articulated in the games. Don't try to just copy the experience of American or Japanese. I mean, remember, the Japanese did a whole series of characters, not intending them to go anywhere but Japan, and yet they became very, very important worldwide. And I believe that the size of the Spanish-speaking market and sort of Latin mentality, that if you are somebody that can express that well, you may be able to create a worldwide protectable franchise. So that would be my suggestion.
I will absolutely second that. Anytime I've spoken to a college, people ask me how to write game music, and a lot of times they ask very specific technical questions, and that's all easily understood. But I always tell them the first thing you have to do is write good music, and if it's good and you screw up the loops and the interactive part's not so great, it doesn't matter because the music's good. The first game I heard that didn't have program music was Quake, the first Quake. Trent Reznor did the music for it. And it's not scored, it spins up the CD-ROM, but it feels scored. It's good music. It's got dynamics in it. It's perfect for the game. So, the only way you're going to write, well, what is good music? I don't know. But the only way you're going to write original music is if you bring the sum total of your life and your musical life into what you write. Because you're the only one who lived that life. You're the only one that had that experience. So, Mexicans can only be the people who would make a Mexican game. So yeah, just do it. Make Mexican games. We'll play them. And score them. And act in them.
How hard is to make voice acting, and what do you need to get into that job?
It's easy.
Both.
It's okay.
No, I mean, for me, it's basically coming from a truthful place. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of natural ability to do it. You have to have some training, so it's like anything. They say that, one of my favorite quotes is that Picasso studied his entire life to learn how to paint like a child. So you have to have that, you have to learn a craft. At the same time, when it comes time to perform, you have to let that go. Because if you get hung up on the craft, it's going to be still, it's not going to be genuine, it's not going to be real. You have to trust that what you're feeling is going to be conveyed. You just have to articulate that and not be afraid of showing it. It's basically exposing yourself to the world, warts and all. And as long as you're coming from a truthful place, the audience is going to relate to that. And the audience will tell you whether they buy it or not. That's your barometer. That's your touchstone. At least for me.
My story's a little different. I agree with everything you just said. What I recommend to people now is so different than how I got in. I went to an audition when I was in college and I just kind of fell face first into it. We had no idea Borderlands was ever going to be as big as it was, and that it would catapult me into a completely different career. But it's an industry that I love. Voiceover work is so rewarding and so just fun, especially if you're passionate about the industry and a gamer in the first place. To be able to have something give to the industry is just so surreal. But my biggest recommendation to people is you have to work for it. You have to put yourself out there. You can't just wait for someone to come along and put you into a game and say, your voice is you have a voice of man. So you be in my game. You ask for it. Get representation. Work for it. Be a businessman. And the work will pay off.
And also, it's not just about the voice. A lot of people think that to be a voice actor, you just need to be able to have a voice. The voice is almost the least important part of it. It's a tool that you can use. But what's most important is to be a good actor. And when you're being a voice actor, you can't hide behind anything. If you're in film, you can hide behind what you look like. That's why you turn on TV, you'll see a lot of actors that aren't that talented, but they look good, they've got charisma, they've got presence, so we buy that. They're not great actors. You put that same actor that may look good on film, you put him behind a microphone, and there's nothing there, because there's nothing happening emotionally for them. And so that's why it's important voice acting is very subtle as well. It's more subtle than film acting, because all you are relying on is just your voice. So you have to be able to convey all the emotions, all the experiences, all the history that your character is going through, just with your voice. And so as long as you're coming, again, from that truthful place, it's the audience will buy it.
For Gerard, nowadays is these video games, live concerts. What do you feel about this kind of?
What do I feel about it? Well, kind of the same way about coming to a convention. I mean, I get to, that music I wrote back in that dark room, and the people who listen to it in their dark room, we get to come together and get to actually conduct an orchestra for them, meet them afterwards, and have a very direct conversation. Experience the music together for the first time, and afterwards talk a little bit. And how do I feel about it? It's a dream come true. You know, I thought maybe I'd have orchestras playing my music in a Hollywood Bowl or whatever after a storied career at age 70 or something like that. And then no, bang, the first one. So, and it keeps going. I can't believe it. So I feel absolutely ecstatic about it. And I hope it keeps going. It's actually bringing kids to the orchestra. You know, it might be a linchpin in keeping orchestras alive. You know, there's kids who come to these shows and decide, I want to do that. You know, they hear the great flute solo the flute link thing that they do, the whole Zelda thing, or they see a violin solo or a cellist go crazy on electric cello and just hear a big orchestra. I can't tell you how many kids have come up and said, I want to do what you do. And I say, no, you don't, but here's my card anyway. But, you know, it's hard. It's very hard. Like you said, you got to have a certain amount of natural talent and a whole lot of determination and just keep working. But, no, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Dream come true.
¿Una pregunta más? ¿No? Bueno, les damos las gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Los esperamos mañana, sábado 1 de noviembre, domingo 2 de noviembre, de 11 a 8 p.m. Ahí van a encontrar a nuestros invitados que están aquí con nosotros y van a encontrar a los otros 3 que todavía no llegan, que vienen en camino. Y a las 2 de la tarde mañana, sábado 1 de noviembre, tenemos la inauguración oficial de la convención. Espero que nos puedan acompañar. Vamos a tener más de los invitados que van a estar aquí con nosotros y los van a poder conocer. Muchas gracias por su tiempo.